High school is an exciting part of a young person's life. You are forming your goals and attitudes now. It's also a very busy time. There are so many activities in which to occupy your time. For over 2 decades, the electric cooperatives of Texas have sent young people just like you to Washington, D.C. for a first-hand glimpse of the political process and to see our government in action. The Youth Tour program gives you a better understanding of the rich heritage of our national life. But the adventure begins here. Right now, you have a chance to be in Washington, D.C. next summer. Watch and listen as young Texans tell you about an expense-paid trip they earned to Washington, D.C.
I'm just like you. I'm on the go all the time. It seems I've always got something to do. Going to Washington, D.C. is something kids like us don't even think about. It's so far away. It's hard for us to realize the decisions made there and how they affect our daily lives. But thanks to my electric cooperative, I went to Washington, D.C. this summer, and I saw for myself how I am a part of what goes on there and how it really does affect my future. Come with me. My friends and I want to show you what the Youth Tour is all about.
When you think of a bus trip, you think, okay, I need to take a book, I need to take my headphones, I need to take cards to keep me busy. I never picked up my book, I never read it, never listened to my headphones. I spent all my time talking, and I'm pretty good at that. And I learned so much about those people.
Millions of people visit Washington, D.C. each year, but being on the Youth Tour is something special. By the time we get there, we were part of one big family.
Washington, D.C. is the center of our federal government. Many important decisions that affect rural America are made here. Being on the steps of the Capitol felt important. I felt like I'm sure there's been a million important people that have walked up those steps, and I have too now. And that's where our country's run. And it gives you a good feeling to think that we're free to go there, we're free to go inside there.
Remember, you could be here in June of 1986.
You know, they arranged a visit with our congressman, and that was really neat, sitting in our congressman's office.
He answered our questions about us in simplest terms as we could understand. And he seemed real. He seemed like my grandfather. He just sat down and he didn't try to act like he was better than anybody. He just answered us. And I guess I thought they were kind of important, special, different people, but they're just like everybody else.
One thing about the Youth Tour, there's always something to do. Like after we visited our congressman, we walked across the street to the Library of Congress, and next door was the Supreme Court building. That was something else.
The Library of Congress was a beautiful building. It's hard to believe that it took 8 years to construct this building. It is all made of marble with gold inlay and gold designs.
Seeing the Supreme Court working, you know, they make the final decision for our country. When it comes to court cases, you know, a lot of people, they hold their life in their hands. And watching them was just amazing. I mean, they're 9 people who make these decisions. After that day, I was really impressed. We saw 2 branches of our government in action, and I didn't think anything could top that. But the next day, being at the White House was probably the biggest moment of my life. It was a a feeling inside that you really can't describe. It was just, I was standing there, I mean, with the president. He wasn't next to me, but it made me feel proud. I mean, that I could be there on the same grounds with the man that runs our country.
Today, we celebrate the depth and vitality of the ties between our nations. Our shared democratic ideals serve as a bridge between us. Our cultural differences enrich our relationship. Our mutual commitment to the freedom and dignity of man set us on a different road, a higher road, than governments which deny the human rights so cherished by our peoples.
I noticed there was just kind of a feeling about the crowd, you know, when the flags came in and the military, and everyone seemed so proud to represent their country.
When we attended the Sunset Parade, and at first I thought, oh, a parade, you know, what's this kind of parade going to be?
Seeing all those Marines at Iwo Jima was awesome. It really made me understand that freedom has its price.
And on the next day at Arlington National Cemetery, for the first time, I really understood how much Americans are willing to pay for freedom.
To know that all those men gave their life, and, you know, they gave it for me. I mean, they didn't know me, but that's who they gave it for. They gave it for each one of us.
Because the military is patriotic to everyone, and seeing that it's also organized, and the headstones were all in rows no matter which way you looked at them. And then seeing Kennedy's grave sites, they were really impressive and sent chills, you know, on I think everybody that was there.
When I watched the changing of the guard at the tombs of the unknown soldiers, I was amazed at how precise their movements were. The uniforms were flawless. Every metal gleamed in the sunlight. And to think these guys are on duty 24 hours a day, every day of the year, no matter what the weather.
Laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier was a patriotic experience for me. It was exciting enough being able to march down there with the soldiers escorting you and all eyes were on you, but when that wreath was laid down, you put your hands over your heart and the bugler played taps. And you looked down and you saw the wreath and everyone was standing at attention. It ran chills up and down your spine and it made you proud to be an American.
When you look at the Vietnam Memorial, you know, it doesn't stand proud and it doesn't stand tall, but it's impressive.
It's so recent, it's in my time. It's something that I can relate to. The Washington Monument, the Jefferson Monument, they were all beautiful, but they were past, and Vietnam to me isn't past. It's still very in the present. It's in the minds of many people, especially people my age.
You know, visiting Washington, D.C. and learning about the people that made our country great is like having a history book come to life. I can't express the feeling of standing in the National Archives and looking at the original Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. For more than 200 years, these basic documents have become the cornerstone of our American democracy. And to have the opportunity to walk in the same places as our founding fathers is a humbling experience. In particular, I remember George Washington's home.
Nothing was actually as exhilarating as being in the house itself, the place where he slept and ate and just carried out his daily lives just much as we do today. It sent a cold chill up my spine just thinking about standing within just a few feet of the man who led our country to victory over the strongest nation in the world, strongest empire at that time. The man who began to lead our country, who set traditions, and who was just an enormous leader.
My visit to the Ford's Theater was interesting. I walked up to the door and I looked inside, And there was a rocking chair that I know Abraham Lincoln sat in. And yet it was a strange feeling to walk up where he was killed. It just seemed strange. At the Lincoln Memorial, I looked up at this tall man, or he's very large when you're at the bottom, and he had a gentle, kind face, and he seemed to be looking at you when you looked at him. And it's strange to think of what all he did. It's hard for me to believe one man can do as much as he did.
It's wonderful for me to go to those places where those type of people are honored, and it just brings chills up your back to see that, hey, these are the things that you read about in books. These are the places that so many young people don't have the opportunity to go.
The trip to Washington was a wonderful experience in the fact that it made me grow to enjoy politics a lot more than I have in the past. I've always enjoyed debating in politics, and the people involved in it, the elections and things such as that, and it makes me want to be more involved with our country's future.
This tour, I mean, you get so many things from it. I mean, spiritually, friendship, you get education, you get a whole new insight of what your government is, and you get insight about yourself. I mean, this tour is like an investment towards your future, which is, you can never take away what you've gotten here.
As we left the city, I thought of all the great things I had seen, but one of the highlights of the youth tour was yet to come.
Our Sunday devotional at Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga, Tennessee caught me by surprise. I knew what to expect from a devotional, but I had no idea that the setting would be so beautiful and our emotions so overwhelming.
It's like you're on at the top of the world. I mean, and you're around this breathtaking scenery, and everywhere you look, you can see it's like God's beauty all around you, and there's like nothing left out. Everything, you feel so complete, and you feel like you're right there with God. And then when we had the ceremony,
it's hard to tell you in just a few short minutes everything about the youth tour. It's an adventure you have to experience yourself. But right now, you have the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. next summer and take it from someone who's gone. Go. I'd like to tell you more, but I'm late and I've got to run.
so I would like to say that anybody else who sees this contest, I mean, just go for it, because I mean, you can't lose anything by it.
I think many of the friendships formed during this past few days will last a lifetime.
The young people that were on this tour were generally interested in what they could do to build not only themselves, but help in building a better tomorrow for our country.
If you even have the least bit notion that you think that you want to go, you should try, because it's something you'll never forget.
Whether you're rural or from an urban area, every young person needs to be exposed to what this whole youth tour has to offer. And I've never seen young people gain as much as they've gained out of this program.
Remember, you could be here in June of 1986.
You could be here in June of 1986. You could be here in June of 1986.
You could be here in June of 1986.